Hey guys, happy Friday. Thanks for being here. Yeah, so we've got a great class today. It's one of my favorite stitches because it is a very easy stitch and it's one that's super versatile. You can change it up, of course, and you can use any beads. So it's a stash buster and it goes fast and looks complicated. So win, win, win all across. And also it's just really fun and meditative, and you can do the color blocking pattern that I've done here, or you can make your own patterns. So there's just all kinds of places you can take this design. So I was going to show you guys first the designs that I made. Oh, yeah, the mat is great too. So I've got the one that's in the handout, which is this really beautiful 10-0 design. And the 10-0 seed beads are from the pack that I'm showing here, which is a really cool one. It has like a vintage gold. It's like a metallic vintage gold. And this is like a deep ruby, and that's a hematite. So this is fall and can be holiday, which I thought was kind of good for this time. And it could kind of even be Halloween because it looks, you know, with the red and the dark colors. So yeah, so this is a very versatile one. I dropped a crystal on the bottom and I leveled it up with some 18 karat gold findings. So that's the main one. And then I just also wanted to show you that it can be done with other size beads. So this is a size 8-0 Czech seed bead. And I made it with this really pretty palette. And again, it's got the hematite in there, but with some silver lined aqua and some opaque black. So this came out really cool. And I even made it like pop with some blue thread on the side. So lots of things you can do. I'm going to show you guys how to build this. And I'm going to share some tricks for what I think is the only tricky part of this is the tension. So whenever you're doing like a stitch where, you know, the stack ups are different. So like, for example, we're going to build this with stacks of 2, stacks of 3 in a single bead. We're going to do that all together, like with just one swoop, right? And so you're going to get a little bit of variation, a little bit of wobble. And every time you do a turn, there's this one spot where I'm going to share 2 different ways you can try to get that tension perfect. I think it's the only real pitfall in a design like this for beginners. I would have called this a beginner class if it wasn't for that one part. And that again is just the tension on the side when you're making each turn. It is an even count design though. So that's a total win. And a couple of the methods I'm going to show you for when you're in process creating it, how you can kind of troubleshoot things like gapping, if you get any gapping here. And we'll go through all of that. And then by the end of class, you'll be as hooked on this as I am, and you'll want to make tons of them. And so before I show the rest of the materials, I showed the beads. I was going to show a couple more variations. Here's another 8-0. This one is the colorway I think I might work with just in class today. The reason is that is very bright, and I'm feeling like these dark colors would be hard to see. But we can demo with both. We can start with a larger bead and then move down to the small if that might be great just to see it with different beads here today. But this is an 8-0 design, and I used another one of our palettes for this. I used this one. Really, really gorgeous palette. So a lot of these are opaques, and then this is like a matte transparent AB. Really beautiful together. So that's one. And then I used a combination of palettes to do one more. And this is where I believe it's already, Carmi already dropped it in the chat right before when we were getting started. This is an additional pattern. So this is where you can take a design like this, and why it's cool is because this has a center point. And a lot of even count peyote designs don't have a center point, so you can't really center something like a wave or like a little circle or chevron. So this is just one of many things you can do. And again, this pattern is a little extra bonus thing that we dropped in the chat. And I think, yeah, I'm seeing Carmi just shared it again. So it's right there. So we've got lots of little extras and places you can take this. So what I'm going to do first is, let's see, I'm going to show you guys the rest of the materials, and then we'll just start stitching with the larger beads. And then after that, we'll switch to small if you guys are in for seeing that. And then of course, any questions you have while we're going, please drop those in the chat. If I can answer them on the spot, if I see it pop up. If I miss it, Carmi will ask me eventually at a spot what that she feels is good. All right. And so we've got findings. So I used a combination of findings, and this, you won't need these until the very end, but I did kind of like a connection from a lobster claw to a 6mm and an 8mm jump ring. And again, that was just to make the chain, and I kind of did 6, 8, 6, 8, 6, 8. And up here, I just did a 6mm with the lobster claw. And then right at the end there, I dropped a crystal and I put that on a head pin. And that's optional too. Just any charm you have or little crystal. The part number for this is in the handout. And I use this a lot, and a lot of our designs have this as the little extra. So if you grabbed one strand of it, you could use it for all our projects. It comes up over and over again. And let's see, what else do I have? Oh, the thread and the needles. So Wildfire 0.006, feel free to go colors. You can use any colors you want. Size 10 beading needle. I think 12 is fine too. And the last but not least, the extra stuff like scissors, and you will also need some chain nose pliers to flatten the Wildfire. We have a little trick for getting our needles started that we need chain nose pliers for, and of course chain nose pliers for doing your jump rings at the end. If you were going to do the wire wrapped charm with the head pin at the very last spot, you will need some round nose pliers and flush cutters for that. But other than that, that's everything. And in the handout, everything I'm showing you today is outlined. If anyone's having trouble finding PDFs, go ahead and shoot me an Instagram at Danielle Wicks Jewelry, or you can find me at danielle.wicks@johnbead.com, and I can send you anything that's missing. We do our best to get everything where it's supposed to be, but you know, computer world, it's tough. So yeah, just send me an email if you're missing something and I'll get it for you. But this one is the first step. So this is the coolest design ever because it starts out with what looks like an odd count design and ends up working out like an even stitch. And I'm baffled by it, and it's fun, and it's just like, how does it work, right? But it's basically treating sections of beads as one bead. So you're just doing even count peyote stitch the whole time. You're not changing anything out other than you're just doing even count. But for example, these two beads, they're being treated as one. And then you're treating this as a down bead, one bead. Then you're working with one. Then you're working with these three as one bead, and so on. So every time you're adding new beads, you're doing so changing the count of what you consider to be one bead. And hopefully this will make a lot more sense once we get stitching. But it's all here, so you can see and you can reference, and then of course we'll reference how to do the clasp at the end. We'll do all that. And so for how much thread to cut, let me get the thread going. In the handout, I just said comfortable length with a 15-inch tail, and that's all you need to do. A comfortable working length for me is anywhere between 60 to 75 inches or a wingspan. So hand to hand, if you just like make an airplane and hit your lamp when you do it, then that's about 60, 65, 70 inches or so. And that's a good length to go with. A little, any more than that, and you're likely to get knots or something like that. So adding thread, we're going to show. And it's the kind of the classic way that I like to do it. It's just weaving in a new strand. That's the last of that one. But I'll show that. And let's see. So here's that little trick I was going to mention about how to get your needle threaded in case anyone hasn't seen this before. So we take chain nose pliers at the end of your thread and just flatten it. And so you see how it made it kind of like almost paper thin. And it's a little hard to see with the focus, but a lot thinner. And then you want to grab your beading needle, and it should go right through. And if you're having any trouble getting it threaded, just flatten it again, trim it and flatten it again. Sometimes the ends get a little frayed. There we go. So the next thing you'll need is 3 colors of seed beads. And in the design I originally did for the handout, again, these were size 10-0 Czech from one of our palettes. It's a very easy to do with any size beads, and you can, oh, thanks, Sharon. It's our 100th class today, I believe. So we've done 100 classes for Michael's, and I can't believe it. So that's very cool. So yeah, that's okay. I'll go have cake after this. I'll find cake somewhere, you know. I will. You guys find cake too, and we'll all just like post pictures of our cake. But yeah, so this is 10-0 Czech. I'm gonna do a demo with some 8-0 because they're bigger, it's easier to see, and then we'll switch and do the 10 after that once everybody's feeling more comfortable with the structure. Same exact steps. I did get asked one question in the email. Someone was asking, could I work this with 2 colors? Or yeah, totally. You could just make this color A, color B, and color A, color B, and color A. So no problem if you just want to work with 2. Also, you can change these counts. There's no reason you can't make this 3 or make this 2. All of that's optional. You can do all of these things. And once you've seen how this builds, it will occur to you naturally how to change it up. And you could always text me too and message me, and I will try to answer. So this is my color A. So my edge color. This is my color B, which is the one that is like stacks of 3. And here's my last color, which is the center little stacks of 1. Okay, so first thing you want to do is string the beads in the following order. So start with 2 of your first color, your color A. And again, any color you want. So this is going to work great. You can use any beads, any color. Just try to stick with the same size. 3 of your color B. 2 of these. And again, all of that is right here. Just in case you're worried about memorizing this, you don't have to memorize it. It's all right here. And here's 3 more. And so what you're going for is kind of a repeat mirror of 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, like that. Again, any colors, any beads. The cool thing about this is all the palettes on the wall that have the same size seed beads, all 3 of them the same, will work for this. So you can grab any of them. So from here, make sure you're leaving about a 15-inch tail on this side. You will need that to make the little attachment at the end for the jumper to go on. And when we get to that part, I'll talk more about how to make that secure and how to attach a clasp. And there's optional ways you can do that. Yeah, Winnie, I love this color. This was one of the very first palettes that we did when we were doing the prototypes. I worked with 3. One was the earring, which was, I have them here, this palette that Carmi designed. And then there was this one, and the third one was coffee and cream. The very, very first 3 that we ever did. And they happen to be my favorites. Although I have more than 3 favorites. So the next thing you want to do is pick up 2 more of the color A. So we had this original that we strung, and don't worry, we'll do this more than once. So we'll go through this demo a couple of times at least. So all those are ready to go. That's the first part. And then I strung 2 more of our color A beads on. And now what I'm going to do is, you'll recognize this as even count peyote. We're going to skip the first bead, but remember the first bead is 2 beads for us. So we're pick up a bead, which is these 2, skip the first bead, which is those 2, and go through the next bead. And our next bead is 3. You want to go through 3 beads. And so when you do that, with any luck, your 2 edge beads will pop into the square shape that's shown there. And that's the goal. So it should do that. Now this next section, and that's why it really helps to have the different colors, is you can see it a little clearer. But the next section, we just need 1. We're going to treat 1 bead as 1 bead. And again, you're going to skip the next bead, which is this purple one here, and go through the next bead. So there we just treated 1 bead as 1 bead. And I like to do this trick where I take my working side, my tail side, and just kind of tighten it all down by pulling those 2 apart. And that makes them snap into place. And I do it over and over again until I get to the end. But there's what we're going for now. You got your square, and then you've got the single bead stacking like little bricks. And so now for the next bead. The next bead is 3. 3 of these. Skip the next bead, which is 3. So instead of bead, you could say skip the next color, right? and go through the next color. And our next bead is just 2. So if you've got this far, you've got the whole stitch done, because this is the only tricky part. And then we'll do tension. But that's it. That's pretty much how to start. There's rows 1, 2, and 3. So let me show what happens when you put the next row on. And from there, we will check in with everybody. If you feel like you want to see that one more time, just let me know in the chat. Okay, so we're going to go and pick up these 2, which is treated as 1 bead, right? And now come back through the up bead. And the up bead in this case is all 3 of those blue beads. And it really is so fast. You will have a bracelet done in like an hour, especially if you're working with the 8/0. Now we're going to pick up another bead, skip the next down bead, go through the next up bead, and pull tight. 3 more, right? Because our next bead is 3. So pick up a new bead, skip the bead, go through the next one. Our next bead that we go through are these 2 on the end. And then just pull tight. So there's row 4. And this is the first place I've got an opportunity to introduce you to what I mean by the tension thing. So see how these guys are making like a rainbow, little rainbow shape? If you want that to be a little easier to work with, there's 2 things you can do. One is you can just get your thumbnail here and just pull really tight. And you'll have to do that most of the times. And if you feel like that's good, you can come along and build back. Picking up 2. So let's do 1 more row and then I'll show you another way. But this looks good. And once you add the next bead in the next row, those 3, that little rainbow shape goes away, especially if you gave it a little extra tension on this side. And that works out for me most of the time, and it's conserves thread a little bit. But it kind of requires a little more kind of like your hands feeling out what's happening than the next method, which is this one. So here's another one. We got the little rainbow. You can, and you can do this every stitch if you want, or you can do it only where you feel like you need it. You can go through the last 2 beads, the ones from before, and then turn and come up through the 2 next ones above it and pull. And that often fixes it too. And the bonus of doing it that way is when you come along to put in the next row's first stitch, it doesn't loosen up when you go through it. Because going through those 3 beads is actually kind of tricky when you're going fast. Like when you go to put your needle through here, it's going to loosen up on you. And then if it does that, you can always just pull right here to tighten it, pull on that strand. So I'll show you that a few more rows so you can kind of see what I mean by all the different ways you can fix that tension issue. But it comes up a lot more the bigger the bead you're using than it does on a smaller bead. So like when I was working with 10s, it didn't happen as often. The larger the bead, the more you're going to see this issue. Now that one just kind of popped, so I wouldn't even worry about that one. Just keep going. But right here, where you go through here, see it kind of, you can have that happen. And if you feel like, oh, darn it, just kind of hold it, come over here and just pull that tighter. And then keep going. That's one way. And next bead. Next 3 beads. Okay. So here's another way to reinforce. Go back. You're here. This is all optional. This is just if you feel like this rainbow needs tightening and you don't want to pull on the strand as you're working, you can just do it that way. Usually that just kind of works. 2 more. So just try it and see which one you like. You may find that you like the turn, which is that little loop we were doing. And you might find that you just want to, just kind of tighten it as you make your next stitch, which is totally great. Here's the turn on this side if you want to do it on this side. Just a really fast turn there, which locks in my 3 beads. It makes it easier for me to swoop through them. And once again, I'll show you the way that doesn't have a turn. If I just want to go directly back, start my next row, get through those, and just right before I go through, I'll just pull on this again. And it all just depends as you're going, what you think your piece needs, and you'll kind of get the feel for it as you start and as you keep stitching. And if you miss a bead, another thing is that it will show right away to you. I missed a bead there. So that's the whole thing. You just keep doing that until you finish your full length of the bracelet. So I'm just gonna pause here and check in and see what to do next for, should we start over? We can switch beads, we can do all that, so.
Danielle, I think the most important thing is some people are going to get it just from this one demo and they may be working away. I think the first 3 rows are the hardest, and I think you should try and show us how to do that more than once.
Gotcha. Should I keep working with those colors?
Sure.
Yep. Okay. I'm gonna grab one more thread span. I'm gonna grab a new spool here. I ran out of Wildfire.
Danielle, I just noticed what Sharon was saying. Thanks for planning in for errors. And once you got past the first 3 rows, I felt now I could see it. But in the beginning, I was thinking, I don't know if I'm going to be able to start this. So then now I feel I can make a bracelet.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is like, I feel like this is really kind of the same thing. If you've done even count peyote, you got this, right?
Well, we definitely have peyote people in the room.
And one of the really cool things is that I'm hoping this will inspire the trying of other counts and inventing your own counts. I literally just made this up with the 2, 3, 1 kind of configuration. You can do this any way you want. There's a couple other versions that I have. I have like a pattern I did years ago. I think it's on my website called Cactus Bands, I think. And it's a series of 2s with 1s. So it goes 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, back and forth. And the way that the colors stack up looks so cool. It kind of gives it like it's color blocked, but it doesn't look color blocked because of the way that that they stack. So there's just so many things you can do. You can take this so many different directions. But what I did there is I just cut what was like a comfortable length of working thread. And then I'm leaving a 15-inch tail on this side. This is my tail side. So 15-inch tail there. Comfortable length. And then we're going to start to string. So you'll want to string 2 of your first color, 3 of your next color, and then 2 of the color after that, 3, and 2. So you'll have this at the end. And those counts they're just something I made up. You could do all kinds of different counts. As long as this convention is followed, you'll get a good result, which is just matching the count that you chose with the next row you add. That's all you got to do. So there's 2, 3, 2, 3, 2. So I'm picking up 2 of the color A. Skip the first bead there. And then you want to go through the next bead. And remembering our next bead is these 3. We're treating that as 1 bead. And pull tight. Get a little square shape there at the end. And now we're going to work with just one bead. Skip the next 1 bead, that one right there. Go through the one after it. And if you're having any tension, like looseness, you can just take your working side and your tail side and tighten it like that by pulling it apart. And what you should get is a sharper row there. Our next bead is 3 beads. So we need 3, 1, 2, 3. And we're going to skip those 3 and then go through the next 2. And what baffles me, why I can't figure it out, I bet Cindy will be able to tell me, but why that we're only adding 3 beads every row, which should be odd count, right? But you never have to do an odd count turn. And I for the life of me, can't think myself around that. I don't know why this works. It shouldn't work, but it works. So there's rows 1, 2, and 3. And in peyote stitch, the first strand that you string is rows 1 and 2. And then the row you create after that is your 3rd row. So there's 1, 2, and 3. And in peyote stitch, if you're counting, I missed your answer, Cindy. I'll go back and read. But yeah, so the count, if you were trying to figure out, well, how many rows do I have? And you've created your whole bracelet, you just count each side. So 1, 2, 3. And then on this one over here, the last sample, we had created 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 10 rows. So let's put on row 4. Row 4 is going to start with our 2 beads here and then come back through the next bead, which is our up bead. So every row from here on out, we're going to work into the up bead and just match whatever you have as the down bead as the one that you take through the next up bead. So there's that, matching those 3. Now we just need to pick up 1 because we're matching the one we're skipping over. So skip over 1, go through the next one. Now see, I'm about to skip over 3, so I'm going to match that. And I'm going to go through my next up bead. Make sure those 2 right there. Pull tight. And then we're turning and we're creating our next row, which is row 5. And if you feel good about how it's stacking, don't even worry about doing any, tension adjustments or turns. Just feel it out, see what you need. Mine seemed to be working without me doing anything, so I just went with it. Here's 1 bead, going through the next one. I think I'm using medium tension when I'm pulling there. There it goes, 3. I'm skipping over 3, so I'm adding 3. So far so good. Let's keep going. I'm going to just pick up these. So far I haven't needed to do any of those reinforcing turns because everything's just stacking up perfectly. So I'm just going with it. But if you feel you need that reinforcement, let me show that again. There's 1. And go through the next one. Here's 3. And these are all just stacking perfectly for me. But again, if they weren't, I could come through this bead here, which is the last 2 in the row before, and then just pull that through, and then just come back up through those 2. And what that does is it locks these 3 in place, so they won't wiggle when you do your next stitch. That helps a lot of folks as beginners. I think that's one of the pitfalls of peyote stitch in general, and I often teach that even of the single count peyote, just to see if it helps people get their ends to stay put when they're going through their next up bead. So try it, see if you like it. You probably won't need it after you get going, but it can really help you getting started. It also can help if you have any kind of rainbow, like where this one is. It's definitely, because the beads are a little bit bigger than the ones below it. And it doesn't take much variation to cause that, so there you go, just tighten it like that. And when you get the next row on, that rainbow will go away and it won't wiggle as much because you did that reinforcing turn.
Danielle, I just wanted to tell you, Marguerite just messaged me and she said she never thought the 3 beads would line up so well.
I was surprised too, but it worked, and I'd only ever tried it with 2 before, you know, experimenting with combinations of 1 and 2. But yeah, and I wonder if anyone wants to try 4 because that's what I'm thinking next. Because how much faster would that be? You could get like a really wide cuff, and it's like the same number of stitching, but you only have to add 3 beads per row, but you get a cuff that's that wide. So that's just like a lot of bang for your time, right? You just like, you get stuff done so much quicker. So if you're a maker who's selling your work and you're looking to make 4 of these, this is so cool. And then just change the colors every time so you don't get too bored. But yeah, that's pretty much the whole thing. And it's just the most easy, you know, listen to podcast and relax kind of stitch that you could do. And I'm just going to keep stitching for a minute just so you guys can get an idea of the flow and see how fast it can start going. So here's the little rainbow, and I could do the turn I just showed you, or if you don't like the turn, because it does add, it does consume the thread faster. If you don't like the rainbow, then just go ahead and go through those beads. You'll have to help it a little more. See how I had to kind of help it get through the third one. But just right before you do your pull through here, tighten it by pulling on this one over here. Just pulling it. And then maybe hold it in your hand. There you go. Both of those ways will work great. Here's my 2. Oh, 3, sorry. 3 and going through 2. There we go. And that's pretty much all you have to do. Let's see what happens when we go through this one. Get in that little gap there. Pull that side. So that's method 1. And here's method 2, just in case you like this one more. Reinforcing loop. And then start in the next row. Super fun and really chill, like just sitting and stitching and not really worrying about a pattern, but getting a really nice pattern. And there they are. So how do you guys feel about this? You want to see different beads? You want me to start again with these beads, or I could hit my camera. That's always good. We could also talk about like adding thread and finishing it. And then last but not least, we got a bonus pattern. If we really have extra time, I can even show maybe working through that a little bit too. And of course, any questions you have, you feel free to drop those. Adding thread. Okay, yeah. So we're going to say add thread. So let's show that. I have one ready to go for that. So this is one I worked earlier. And it really didn't take me that long. Like, I think I made this in maybe 35 minutes or so. If that's about 35 minutes of work. Or less even. I don't know. I think I probably got up a couple times, did other stuff. Wasn't super watching the clock, but it didn't feel like it took very long. And you saw we just did this much just now. So it's definitely fast. So here's how I add thread. I'm going to use the one I have here as the one we're going to add just to kind of make it quick. And here's the old thread. So my old piece has about a little under 10 inches left, and that's a good stopping point because you're going to want to leave yourself something to weave in with later. So stop about there and then go ahead and cut your new strand and get a needle on that, get it ready to go. I even go so far as to leave my old needle on the old working thread because I'm going to weave that up into the work. And peyote stitch, luckily, it has a really great feature in that you can make a lot of easy turns. So weaving in with peyote is super, super easy. You get a really quick result when you weave in. So here's my new strand. And I'm just going to pick a spot in the work. It doesn't really matter where you go. And we're just going to stitch around in the same thread path, meaning I'm going to still go through the beads like, I did when I was originally adding them. Leave a tail that you can see it doesn't have to be very long because we're going to just trim it at the end. All you need to see here is that as you weave in, you want this to stop moving. This strand is just the end of our new working strand, right? And right now it moves really freely. I'm going to weave around until it stops moving. So here's going through the next one. And the way I'm going through the beads is just a little bit random. It's kind of zigzagging through right now. I haven't really done a turn yet. It still moves a lot, see? Still moving. Come up through here. Still moving. And I'm going to turn. There's one turn. And so from here, I'm going to go through the next bead down. Next bead down. And let's test it again. Getting a lot tighter, but look, I can still make it move a little bit. So I want to do better. So what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to make a turn. Now the cool thing about peyote is you can make turns in the middle of the work, no problem. So I'm going to go up through this one. So I'm exiting from this bead. I'm just going to go up through the middle of the work. It's not going to show. And I might go through this stack up here. I wouldn't try to do a turn in the middle of any of your beads that we're treating as single beads, but feel free to make these turns in between what we're considering beads, which would be like, here's another one. I'm exiting from these three right here, and I'm just going to make a double turn here and go through here. A direct turn, sorry. And watch, it'll just disappear. And if you have any concerns about it showing here, it really doesn't unless you don't pull tight enough. But if it's not settling, you can always spin your beads. And that'll really help it settle into the piece. And it smooths everything out. It looks great. So now let's test it one more time. Let's see what happens. We're watching to see if that moves. And it's good. So I'm going to trim it. This is the tail of my new working thread. I'm just going to trim that by, so to get your scissors and grab the end of it. This is the end of that little tail. Push down, pull up. And let it pop back into the work there. And now we have this new strand to go and work with. So I'm going to just travel. I'm going to travel all the way to exit from where my old strand was. Especially important if you're working a pattern, you want to bring your new thread to be where your old thread was when you stopped. Okay. Old thread's still here, and I'm going to leave it aside for a while. I'm going to let it hang out because I'm going to weave it up into the new rows. I like to do that. It's kind of a habit and like a best practice, really. Because it doesn't add a lot of bulk. Now we're working with 8/0 and it probably doesn't matter in this design. But if you were working with some 11/0s, you might really appreciate not having a fourth pass through a bead, which you would have if you tried to double weave in. So meaning weaving in your new strand here in this area, and then weaving in your old strand in this area. You'd have a lot of thickness. You'd have some frustration. You'd be getting those chainless pliers trying to pull them through. Also, when you put your piece on and wear it, you'd have a different flow. So this is flowy. It's all smooth. I can squish it all up. But if I had double weaving in here, you might notice a slight difference in flexibility. So on all designs, not just this type of design, but on everything I do, I'm always doing the same method for weaving in. I'm bringing that new strand in. Then I'm going to build new rows. Let's do that together. And then I take that old thread and we'll bring it up into the new rows. And I also took note of how many times I turned when I was weaving in the new strand, and it was about 3 times. The magic 3 number of how many turns you did helps you figure out when you're weaving in the old strand up, you won't be able to see a tail moving. you won't have that testing ability. So just knowing that making 3 circles is plenty is really helpful there. And so you can see what I'm doing here as I create my new rows. I didn't do my reinforcement loop and it's kind of a little wonky. So it's going to pull here just to tighten it up and go through. Here's my next one. Go through. Next bead. So there's 1 row. I'm going to do, let's do 2 more rows and then we'll move the old working strand up. And then that should be good. And I was going to do one of those turns there. I changed my mind because of the extra strand coming out of it. So instead I just pulled tight on that extra, on the end of the working strand before going through all the way. Do the beads all the way. So here's that again. Turning back, got these 2. Again, these are loose. We got the rainbow going. It's going to be hard to get through them. And it's all loose. So again, we're going to grab this one right here and pull before we continue that path through. And that should work. And if it doesn't, that little looping process, I'll do that one next here, will work even better. And here's making that looping process go down. And up. Okay, so I've got those rows. Those are my new rows. Let's take the old strand. Here's my old strand. It's 3 rows back. And I left my needle on it and everything, which is handy. I'm just going to start bringing it up into the new rows. I'm going to do a turn here. That's 1. Here's 2. And 3. 3 turns, and then just to give myself an easier time trimming it, I'm going to go through a couple more beads there. 1 more bead, because those 3 are just 1. And let's trim that one. You'll probably need to do that at least once, maybe twice, depending. So if you're working with 8/0, I think you'll only have to add thread 1 time. If you're making like a 7-inch bracelet. If you're adding thread on the 10/0 bracelet, I think I did it 3 times. So for this one, this is 7 inches again, and maybe 7.5 with the clasp. That one I added the thread 3 times on. And let's see, other tips and tricks. Another tip I wanted to give is that if you're going to do this with the 6/0 bead pack, maybe switch your Wildfire up to 0.008. And that usually helps, I think, with the tension issue. Having a little bit, having a bead that fills, having a thread that fills the beads a little bit more helps them sit in a straight line. And so going up to the 0.008 can help you if you're working with a 6/0 bead. So, but what I've got here is 10s, and it's working great with the 0.06. All right, so the thing we have left to show, I did want to check in with everybody before I breeze forward and see if anyone wants to see any of these steps again before we show how to put the ends on. And then we've also got a lot of extra time, so ideas for other stuff you want to see, or maybe we work with the smaller beads for a minute. So any of those ideas are great.
Danielle, I think the important thing is to make sure that everyone knows how to do the pattern for the class. So my recommendation is you show all the finishing techniques. We'll take a little break, and then we'll come back to the harder pattern that you've offered. And you are definitely getting questions about different size beads.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So show the clasp right now.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. So the clasp is really easy, and it's, again, not the only way you can do this. It's just one idea. But what I did was I created a little bridge. So the first thing you'll want to do is kind of lock in the last 2 that you created so they're not loose. And by locking them in, it's just that turn. I'll show you all this, but that turn that we do at the end. when we've been worried about them being loose, where we kind of go back through. You can do that to tighten up the last two that you've got. And I believe that's actually, I did a stitch diagram for it, so you can see. This really helps because this is going to be the end of your bracelet. The thread path's not coming through really well over the camera, but if you've got this in front of you, you'll see it a little better, but you're kind of just weaving around to make everything tighter. So here you can see we added our last row. And you do want to add one more ending for it. And the reason I did that is, let me show you on the piece really quick. The goal is that I want to make a rainbow that connects this edge to this edge. But this part is taller than that part. So I'm going to like start building like I'm creating the rest of the stitch. And also this is my tail side. You're going to have the same thing going on with your tail side that you have with your working side, which is that you'll be exiting from a down bead, right? So here's this is my working side where my needle is. This is the last bead I strung, those three there. And down here, same thing on the tail side. You're exiting from a down bead. And it'll naturally be like that from how you started. So this process is the same on both sides. It's exactly the same. And when I added these last three, I did the little loop around reinforcing thing. I did that on this last one because it's going to make the next thing easier. So I went through that bead and through this one. Okay, so I'm going to pick up two more. And again, this is all in the handout, so don't worry about remembering it, you know, step for step, but we've got our two here. Go through the next bead, which is these three, right? So just like you're creating a row, except for instead of continuing on with this row, we're going to come back. And don't worry, I will show this again on the other side, so we'll do it twice. So we're coming back through those, so I'm exiting from these three beads right here. Continue on through the two that you go through next. So in that step up brick stitch pattern, this would be the next you'd go through. So you went through these, back through these, and I'll come back up through those two. Okay, and so from here, the counts that I used are also in this page, but you can change up these counts. I did 8. If you want to try more or fewer, depending on what looks good to you, it will just mean the loop is taller or shorter. And this is a chance to add length if you need to. You can make your loop bigger. I'm going to stick with the 8 because I thought that looked good. Looks good with both size 8 and size 10. Here's size 8. Jump over all the beads inside and go through those next two. And if you feel like it's not enough, like I feel like this one's not enough, the other one seemed better. Let's look. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you will notice a little bit of variation in your bead sizes. So these beads are a little thinner. And those might be just a little rounder. These opaque black are pretty round. So you're going to need to play with this count on this loop and kind of just take a look at it and be like, okay, 8's working really nicely here. 8 worked really nicely on this one. But I feel like this needs more. And it's probably just because these are a little bit teenier. So let's go back out. So maybe let's do 10. Let's see what 10 looks like. Again, I'm going to go through here. And I like 10 better. Maybe even 9. I don't know. I could be really picky about it, but let's stick with 10 because I think that's going to work nice. And if at this spot you're adding any other kind of clasp than what I did here, which is jump rings that you can open and close later, you may need to add your clasp now. So if you're doing like one of those magnetic ones where they kind of have like an end that looks like a bead and you're stitching it on, you would want to replace some of your center beads with that clasp. And that could be a really cool way to finish this. I love those magnetic clasps. It was really fun. I didn't think of it for this one, but if you did, if you had that here, you could just put them in place of your center 2 or center 1. You could string a number of beads that gives you a center point between the two, something like that. But because I'm going to use my 18 karat gold jump rings and make this kind of like a high end design, I'm going to put them on after I'm done. And so now I'm just weaving back through. So to get back through, I think I showed that in here too. You're going to need to weave around. So you want to come through here and then give yourself a little turn so you can get back through. There's, again, more than one way to do this, but here's one way. You can just go ahead through here, through the next bead here. So going through these 3. And again, I'm just traveling right now because I want to get back to go through all of those beads again. So when you're here, exiting from those 3 beads, it can be tempting to step up through these, but don't go that way because we need to get through this way in this direction. So go through the 2 below it. And now we can turn and we're free to go all the way through all of them. So there's that. And then here on the other side, I can do that same turn again. And this is also great because it reinforces all these ends, making life a lot easier. So there's my 3rd pass through. I feel like that's pretty good. 3 passes, it tightens everything up. It looks really great. I can get I'll probably use a stainless on this one because the colors look better than with the gold. But I'll get some stainless jump rings. I'll get a 8 or a 6 millimeter and then change it up as it comes out. I think, what did I do on this one? It looks like here I just went with the 6 millimeter ones. And just kind of made a little chain. And on this side, I opened a jump ring and put on a lobster claw. So that's one way. And whatever clasp you're using can probably be attached that same way. If it's one of those like, gosh, the Michael's toggles, you know, the ones that have the little kind of stitched in end, again, those you would want to string here. So let's see, it is about 5 till the hour. So we could take a break, come back. I'll do this one more time. We'll finish this side so you can see it twice. And then we'll just do extra stuff. Maybe work with the other color or something. So I've got some water here if you guys want to grab some chocolate. Yeah, Sharon, good idea. Sharon, I still have the chocolate you gave my boys. They gave me all the green ones. They took all the others, but they let me keep the green ones. It's like, Mom, you don't need all those, do you? I'm like, this is my pile. Like, no, you can just keep the green. We'll take the rest. They love it. So they want me to go back now so that they can get more chocolate. Super fun. And it was great getting to meet you and Liz. It was really fun.
Danielle,
Yeah.
while we're waiting for everyone to take their quick comfort break, I want to warn you that you may need to demo how does it work if you use 2 different size beads.
Oh,
But we'll leave that to the very end in the Ask Danielle to Do Crazy Things section.
we can try it. It's tricky. It's tricky because they don't stack up the same.
Nope.
Yeah. It's a different design, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But good, I'll start thinking about it.
But Danielle, if you did want a really thin, tiny bracelet, can you do this with the 11 O's?
Yeah, absolutely. It'll work beautiful with 11-0. You'll want to use definitely the smaller thread and maybe switch to a size 12 beading needle, but you'll be fine. It only gets tricky if you want to use like an 11-0 with an 8-0.
Mm-hmm.
Then it gets trickier. And then I have another design entirely that you could still do these counts with and it would look amazing, but it's a little different. And it's what I would do if I was like, hey, I really want to use this bead with that bead. So we can maybe we'll show that. It'll be fun.
I think because we've had a couple classes now where you've mixed bead sizes
Mhm.
and created some really amazing wavy shapes. So,
Yeah.
oh, Pat, are you asking about 15-0? Yes, 15-0.
Yeah,
I'll
it'll
see
work.
you next year.
It'll take longer, but it'll be beautiful. You could do it.
Yeah. Marguerite is like, pull out the heavy duty magnifiers.
Yeah. Oh,
Tracy
hi,
just,
Tracy.
yeah, you will definitely get an email Monday or Tuesday with the link to the permanent viewing for the video.
Bye. And the cool thing is we got through everything in the handout in that first hour, so she's not missing anything.
No,
But
I'm always grateful if people have, if we really do show exactly what they signed up for.
yep.
And then we have time for your extra wavy pattern, which is the one up.
And I think so. I'm of two minds about the wavy one. I kind of want to do I want to do bubbles. I want to do bubbles, which isn't exactly the same thing we're doing here, but you can use these counts. Oh, I gotta make sure I have some 6-0. Let me grab 6-0. Oh, well, they're all behind me here. Actually,
Danielle, I think I'm watching everyone has pretty much come back.
yeah.
Peggy is asking what your boys are wearing for Halloween. And then I promised Maria that you're definitely going to show how to add the clasp a second time.
Yes, yeah. Why don't we do that first, and then we'll play with the other stuff. Yeah, and adding the clasp is definitely key.
I thought you were going to give us a knot there.
No, I mean, I guess I could. Does anyone want to see a knot? We could do a knot. I don't think it needs it, but if you want to see one, I can do one. But I'm just weaving in right now so I can trim this and get my needle over to where I want it. So to weave in, honestly, it's the same thing we just did before. And it's just super easy. You just turn in maybe 2-3 times. Just stitching around. If you like, I need to knot. Here's one way you can do it. You can just go through a bead, and then if you do a knot on the sides, it's going to show. But you might be able to hide one by grabbing a thread bridge in here and half hitch knotting to it. So in here, of course, there's a bead, there's a strand of thread flowing from this set of beads to this one. And you can pick that up by going down in between the three, leaving your loop there, but then coming back up in between the two there and going through that loop. And with any luck, you'll have to help it. They should sit above the 3 and under the 2 here. So my knot is hiding kind of just outside this size 8 bead right there. It's a half hitch knot. And you could do it again in the same spot for a double knot. Another way to pick up that thread bridge easier than the way I just did it, which was going through the in between the beads, is you could bend the work entirely like that. and then just pick up the thread bridge that way. It's pretty tight, but you can do it. Get through it this way. This is handy if you had short thread that couldn't be woven in. So every once in a while you need to do that. So there's a double one, and then just carry on through some beads. Give it one of these. Do a little swirl thing. And then trim. So that's extra strong there. I'm going to needle this side. I didn't do my flatty thing. I thought I could get away with not doing that. Nope. Okay, there we go. So I'm just folding that over. Okay, so let's add this end. So first thing I'm going to do, this is the last bead I added, right? We pulled this bead on. We're going through this one. I want to lock this in place by going back through, go back through that bead, and then turn and come back up through that bead again. So we have our little locked in place. That will just make this next step easier. And then I'm going to pick up 2 more beads, and I'm going to keep going through the next 3 beads. So far we're just doing kind of the same thing, like we're adding a new row. So like that, right? But now I want to go back and exit from those. So make a turn and come through the 3 that are below the 3 we were exiting from. So we're exiting from those 3 right there. And I'm going to turn and go through those. And then next you want to go through these. They're kind of the next in line. And here's a turn to come back through the edgemost top 2. So far so good. And that little reinforcement will really help us because it's going to lock in place. But if you feel like from here, if you feel like when you pull on this, it comes up too much right there. See that little opening? If that's bothering you, you can fix it right now by doing that reinforce again. Go do 1 loop through here and up. And now it's really tight. So we were saying earlier to experiment with this count. In the handout, it says 8. So here's 8 beads. And then jumping over and going through these 2. But what I found was for some reason with these beads, I felt like it needed more. See how there's some gap? This will happen to you. Don't sweat it. You'll just want to play with that count and see what looks good to your eye and what you like. Also, if you're adding a clasp that's different than mine, and it's one that you want to have stitched in, go ahead and add it now, maybe at the midpoint of the beads that you're adding. But I decided to do 10 on this side because this is what looked good to me. So here's 8, 9, and 10. And it might be different for you, but just play with that count by going through these beads and looking at it and saying, I like it or I don't. And then just, if you want to change it, take it out, change that count, but just play with it and see. And that's pretty much it. So now the next thing I want to do is I want to weave around so that I can go back through this again and make it stronger. I'm going to do it 2 times. So the only problem is I'm exiting in this direction and I want to be going in that direction. So we're just going to weave through the work until we get back. So from where we are on the edge bead there, come through here. And this is just one thread path that would work. There's other ways you could do it, but I went through these 3 and I'm going to come back through these 3. Go through the 2 here. So not the edge ones, but the 2 just behind it. And then make a turn. And that should bring me through those 2. Now I'm going in the right direction. To make another pass through all those beads. And if I'm lucky, I can get through all of them. Here we go. Back over here. Same thing again. I want to do one more. So I'm going to go through this one here. I want to make a turn. So through the 3 beads. And this is where if you're working with 11-0, it gets a little bit tight here. The 10-0, you'll be fine. You have just a little bit bigger hole diameter. So I don't tend to have as much issue weaving around, but switch to a size 12 beading needle if this isn't a 11-0 design for you. There's that little turnaround. Go through here. All the beads here, and then we'll just weave in and we're done. And my weaving and thread is a little short, so if anyone wants to see the knot again, maybe I'll do that. Here's how I did that knot. I kind of bent the work. And I grabbed the thread bridge that is in between these 2 beads. So the thread that I'm going for to capture is the one that's running from here through this one. So to catch it, I just kind of need to get in between and under. So one way to do that is just go down without losing your loop. And then back up through these. And while I'm at it, I'm going to go through that loop. And there you go. So there's one. Check on the back, make sure it didn't catch anything. That looks okay. You can do it twice if you want. I think one's good for me. Go through here. And then I might bring it through a few more beads just because why not? It'll make it. But ideally, I wouldn't let it get that short. And here's those scissors, push down, pull up. And there we go. It's a little teeny, but maybe this could be for like maybe Alex will want it. I think this will fit him. And that's pretty much it. Any questions about clasping or adding clasp? That's one way to do it. There's so many other ways you could, but that's just the way that I thought was the quickest and fun. Yeah, that's right, Peggy, a grandchild version. I make a lot of those here. Yeah. So we have a bunch of questions out there. One was different size beads. And then the other question was this pattern, which is really just something that you could come up with anything. Like this is just something I was playing with. All I did was I alternated. So I made a few rows that were normal, just like our regular stitch here. And then I started adding rows that had 1 extra blue bead, then 2, and then back to 1, back to 0. So that my rows of 3 were kind of like maybe replaced with the turquoise every few often.
Danielle, I put the wave, it's 1-page PDF. I put it in the sidebar several times. I don't know if anybody still needs it, but yeah, it would be great to see it.
Yeah, let's grab one of my other samples that I had from earlier that was going. I think this one will probably work. And so all you'll really need to do is just create a few regular rows in the same pattern we've been doing. So like this one right here. And then at one point, whatever point you'd like, just start changing it up. So what that looked like is start your row as normal. Come through here. And the key is just, being consistent. Once you start with one side, just keep going with that side. But I'm going to make this one the first one that I make different. So this one, instead of adding 3 of my blue beads, I'm going to add 1 of my center color and then 2 blue beads. And you can follow the pattern that I put in the handout or in the extra pattern we dropped in chat if you need to, but this has an intuitiveness to it that you might not even need it. So there's that. So now I'm going to pick up my 2. This is my next row. And I'm going to go back through those 3. I need to tighten this up here. I'm going to add 1. And now I'm here. And I want to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to pick up 1 bead in my center color. And then just 2 beads that are in my color B and finish my row. So now I've done an increase of 1, 1. Let's get 2 more here. Going back through those. That one worked out really nicely. We're going to pick up 1. Next up bead. And here, we're going to pick up 2 beads. So 2 of the center color. And 1 of this. So this is the 3, but now we've replaced 2 of them with our center color. So it's going to kind of come out like a chevron a little bit. Doesn't look like much right now, but when you keep going, if you're just, a lot of things like in the pattern, just copying what you did many times. And then after 4 repeats, it looks amazing. Here's 1. Need to copy what I did before, right? 2. And 1. If you're here. So now I am at the midpoint of my little wave. I'm out of blue. I need to grab some more of that blue. And here's the pack. That should be good. Okay, so let's do the next row. Let's pick up these 2 here. And let's come back through here. Again, this is just a 1. The center doesn't change and the edge doesn't change. The only thing that changes is our 3s. So I want it to start tapering back down. So we did 1 here. And then we did 2 here. So now we're just going to do 1 again. Here's 1. And then there's the rest of my 2s. So up bead. And here's 2 more. Here's the 1. The center's always staying the same. I want to go back, taper down to 1 now, right? So 1, 1, and 1 for a total of 3. Back through here. Here's 2 more. Edges are staying the same. We're not changing those up too much. There's that. Here's the center one. And here, I want to do just regular 3 again because I finished. I tapered down to 1. Now I'm down to 0. And I'm going to make 3 rows of regular, just regular pattern. And then I'll start this thing I did over again. I'm running out of thread. 3. Again, this is going to be just the regular 3. Let's get 2 more. I'm going to keep going a little bit further so you can see it. And I feel like that's good, but if you ever got this far and you felt like you needed to tighten it up, all you need to do is just pull on this right here. Pull, and then pull it again. It looks good to me. Center bead. And the 3. And I'm letting my weave inside get very short. But that's pretty much all you need to do. I would create a few more rows. Any questions about this pattern? Does it make sense to everybody?
Danielle, I think everyone's going to give it a shot.
Yeah, and of course it's just something I made up, right? So you can make up your own pattern too. And one thing, I didn't think of it until just this moment, but wouldn't it be cool if we had a blank pattern you could color in? That might be cute too. that's something I can do. If you guys are members of, well, there's no sense dropping it in the Facebook group because no one else can see this who isn't here today. So what would be the best way for me to get that out if I created it?
Danielle, we can put that definitely in the Facebook group in the next couple of days.
You think so?
Yep.
Okay.
A color in yourself pattern.
Yeah, and even if they weren't in the class, maybe somebody just already knows how to do this and they can use it. And otherwise,
Of course.
maybe someday we'll present a version again or something that we can offer.
Danielle, before we try a few other things, Pat finished.
Oh, let's see. Of course, Pat's done already. I knew that before you said it. I'm like, yeah.
Nope. Oh, work in progress. There it is.
Oh, you've got your clasp on and you did a magnetic. Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, I felt like that. Oh, well, Cindy's got hers. Look at. Oh, that's so cool. Oh, awesome, guys. Oh, I love those colors too. That purple is just popping. It's really gorgeous. Yeah, this is such a fun design. I love doing these. They're just so like inspiring because they're just a way to just use up colors, right? You don't have to think about it. So let's see. You guys were asking about different.
Danielle, there was two things.
Two things.
Number one, how hard is this setup if you're using the smaller beads?
Yeah, let's do that.
And then if you master the smaller bead version, can you do a multiple size bead version?
Yes, let's do a small bead, a section, and then we can add bigger beads to it.
Cindy is working with 11 O's right now, so this will take her forever, she said.
Yeah, the 11 O's, but it's going to be beautiful when it's done. It's going to be stunning. I find the smaller the bead you work with, just the crazier cool it looks.
And then you recommend going to a small, the 12 needle.
I would, yeah. So I actually want a little extra length because I'm thinking I might use this one to demo going up in size. So let me grab a brighter color of small. So in my demo, of course, I'm going to use bright colors because I need you guys to be able to see it. But of course, in the original, we were using this palette. This palette is 10-0 Czech. And we treated the hematite as the outside color, the ruby is the 3, and the gold as our center. For the demo, I think I'll work with this one. A little brighter. And then when we change sizes, I'll bring in size 8 and I'll bring in some size 6. And I hope it works because we'll see. So let's start with these guys. All right. So I'm gonna make this my color A. Let's give you my color A. And let's have this be B. So that'll be our middle. And this one can be C. And again, comfortable length of working thread. Don't make it too long. And then just go ahead and start your first strand. So it was 2, 3. That one jumped away, sorry. So again, that's 2 and then 3. Then you'll just want to make your center, which is 1 and 2. And then again, 3. And we're back to 2. And go ahead and leave a tail that's like 15 inches long or so that you have enough to do that little loop we were doing, that finish we showed. Extra can't hurt. And from here, it's going to be a little teeny. Let me move up a little bit. I feel like I'm way down here. Okay. So from here, you want to do the same thing and pick up 2 beads in your first color. Skip the first ones and go through the next 3. Again, we're just treating every color as a single bead. And when you get to this part, that little bottom there, we want that to pop into a square shape. If you pull working and tail threads apart, it might just do that automatically for you. So you're going for that. Now we're going to just pick up one of the center color, just for me is green. Skip the next one. and then go through the next one. And then pull them apart for the pop. Here's the 3. We're gonna get 3 of these going. Skip 3 and go through the next 2 here. And pull them apart. Okay, so there's a tiny, tiny 1, 2, and 3. And again, these are size check 10-0. Or size 10 check. Here's row 4. Let's grab these 2 right here. And go through 3. And let's pick up 1. Go through 1. And now I need 3. Let me go through the last 2. So you get something like that. And one of the things you'll notice right away is that I'm not seeing as many needs to do like that turn or the tension adjustment or all that. When I was stitching up the 10-0s, I didn't really need to do much in the way of pulling very tight, making the turn, reinforcing it by pulling on it before going to the next beads, all that stuff. It just started to just kind of work. And I'm not sure why, but the smaller beads just might be filled up by the thread a little more. And so it makes them stay in a straighter line so they don't come loose as easy. But in at least this one way, you have an easier time working with a smaller bead, which is usually the opposite. So here I've got a little turn there. So it's just coming along. It's looking really nice. I'm going to do 1, maybe 2 more rows, and then be ready if you feel like you have questions or want to see that again, or we'll just start changing it up. So go through here. There's one where I feel like I need to tighten it, so probably because I hit them maybe going through. Just that. But see how great these stack up, really pretty. And now I just feel like I really want to see this one finished because it looks so nice. So there they are, small beads, but same steps, really super easy. Works with any size. So any questions about that? Did I lose anybody, or does it make sense with the small beads? I feel like it's the same and it's pretty intuitive, but
Danielle, I mean, we love the colors.
yeah, me too.
That 3-pack is really, really super. It does look so elegant.
Yeah, let me grab the other one that I had earlier so you can see size difference here. And
Yeah, that is a big difference.
Original sample, and that's just the difference between 8-0 and 10-0. And there's the full one. And I worked the ripple sample with 10-0 as well. Ripple or wave, or I wasn't sure what I was calling this, but that's also Czech 10-0. And I went and used I used colors from 3 different packs when I made this one. I used that turquoise from the pack I just showed. And
So you were just mixing and matching.
Yeah, I felt like using this bright orange, brought that one out. And then I used this blue, which is the one that's from the Glacier netting class. And so there's all those together in this design right here. And then last but not least, I used this one in, I can't find where I put that other little sample. Here it is. I used this one in that one. So if you wanted to go a little crazy, I'm not totally sure it's going to work, the idea that I've got, but has anyone ever done a bubble stitch with the peyote? It's kind of a really fun thing that I like doing. And I was even thinking of making it a January free class because it's not super hard and we can just probably demo that in an hour, but I can't think of why it wouldn't work with different counts. never tried it, so it could totally flop and then I'll be a lot embarrassed, but let's try it. So from here, what you would do in like a regular bubble stitch. So let's say we're working with single beads, you would just switch the size of the next row and you would do a few rows of that size and then bring it back down to a smaller size or keep going to a bigger size, then taper back down. And what you get, if you do that same turn I was showing you, that makes the side tight, you get this big pop like in the center. It does take a minute to get the effect to show. So let's just go ahead and follow our same color convention we've got going here. And the first row is going to be the very, very most difficult one because we're making a jump in size, right? So I just jumped to 8-0. And here's another one. Or actually, no, we wanted to do purple, right? I've got less of these, so we'll stick with blue. So there's that. I'd actually really like to do a bubble stitch class, like a whole class on that, with just, you know, a single bead, single count of beads. That would be fun. We've never done it. So there's one row of 8. And I'm going to reinforce this last little row here. I'm curious, Cindy, have you done the bubble stitch? It might be called something else. I think there's different names. Yeah, I will do one, Maria. I will for sure. I like it. And it's been a really long time since I've taught that. I'm wishing I'd had a sample already. I have a bunch of finished ones. They're all over my Insta. I used to be kind of addicted to making those, but you'd have to scroll back a ways. And all I'm doing here is I've sized up. It's going to be a lot trickier working with the different counts, but I feel like it's going to work. We've got time. I'll probably have to go at least a few more rows. And if we don't like it with the multiple counts, I will grab another strand and we'll just do a single count so you can see what a bubble looks like with a single count. But let's see if this works. So far, I'm not doing anything new other than I've changed the size of beads that I'm working with midstream. I went from 11 and now I'm working with some 8. And what's starting to happen, the way that the bubble gets made is you bring it back down with a small bead and it makes it puff up because it has nowhere to go. It creates 3D. And it's already starting to do that just a little bit. I don't know if you guys can see, it's bending on me. And when I finish the next, maybe I'm going to do 4 rows like that on either side. So a total of 8 rows going in 8-0, which won't take super long. The reinforcing turn I just showed you in bubble stitch, you have to do that every single time. It's working. I can't believe this is working. Here's that turn. And it's even more dramatic if you go straight from like a small 10-0 check to a 6-0, but it's advanced for the reason that you need to really tighten it. I think I even had a sample like that might even be next to me, but it's in like 1,000 boxes. I'd have to dig and find it. But it's really cool seeing like a very dramatic size jump. It's a very neat thing to see. Wrong colors, guys. If I have that bracelet next to me or not. I think it's working. Wow. Okay. Let's do one more row. You do really want to have a few more rows to see the effect. Because it's got to have a way to go up and down like a little hill, right? So I've done 8 rows now. If I put this last row on, and then we're going to switch back to 10. I think I used to do at least 5, but I think 8's even better. Make it tight. Okay. Now for the fun part. Let's bring back these sides. If this works, we'll throw 11.0 on next and see, or sorry, we'll throw 6.0 on and see how that looks. Okay, first thing you're going to notice is a little differential in width, which is okay. Keep going. Don't be scared. I'm talking to myself here. There's our 3. Okay. This part's the most important part of a bubble stitch. You're going to pull really tight. Do a turn to lock it in. And maybe I could have gotten away with doing a little more, but as far as like how many 8s to do, but let's go ahead and make a few more rows of the size 10 so you can see what I mean. Oops, all right. Want yellow. Making this turn right here. It's going to take about 3 rows of the 10 before I feel like it will really show what I'm trying to do, but it looks cool. Here's the turn. And I hope that turn's coming across, because if you got anything out of this class, that turn is the trick. It's the little hidden tip that no one will tell you, not even the beading books. I was surprised. I came up with that just, you know, out of desperation. And then I found out, oh yeah, that's what everybody does. Really? Got a real differential there. So I'm gonna go back through here. So the tension I'm using is like mega tight. There we go. I don't know if you guys can see it coming across yet, but the last time. So the effect is not as dramatic, given that I haven't done very many rows and it's very small, but you see how this is starting to look. If we've got a few more minutes, I'll keep going and maybe grab 6.0. The transition from a size 10 to a size 6 is really dramatic and cool looking. And if you can get the tension right, I once made one of these designs, like, and I won a contest for it. It's a long time ago when I was first bead weaving. A little local bead store over here was having a challenge that you had to use their anniversary colors in a design. And it had 3 different sizes of seed beads in it. And so that's what I did. And it's the very first time I ever won anything in beading. And it was a $50 gift card to the shop. And I bought more seed beads, obviously. So yeah, that was really cool. I still have it floating around. And it is on my Insta way back. You'd have to go back to like 2017 or something to find it, but it's on there. Oops, I didn't do that little turn. I'm gonna put on so that you've got 4 of these little blue beads on each side, and then we'll try 6-0. And if anybody's seen this before and you're like, then you're right. It's like, I've definitely done this a lot of times. I do this a lot. One of my favorites. Actually, I was just having a thought. Oh, wow. Okay, so back in 2020, when I first got to start doing stuff for Michael's, we made a bunch of samples. Carmen, do you remember that huge batch of stuff? And we down selected it from like, I think it was like a dozen pieces, and we chose the first 4.
That's right.
There's a bubble stitch back there. We've never used it. We've got a Leo photo and everything.
January, here we come.
Yep, that's what I'm thinking. We'll just bring that one back. And it's green. So this was so long ago. That was before the first planogram was up, and we didn't know what colors we're going to make it in yet. So it even has like different colors that might now be in our palettes, actually. I can't believe how long ago that was. So long ago. Okay. Got 4 here. Let's do one more. And let's get some 6-0s. There we go. You know what I'll do is I will dig up those old pictures. I'm feeling nostalgic about it. I'll dig up the old picture from the one that I did the award for, and I'll post it in our Facebook group. There's that. And let's get I got this palette out. I'll grab these 30. I don't know which color I want to do as a center yet. The gold is kind of an outlier here, but it's still going to be cute.
Danielle, this is going to be the greatest stash buster ever.
Oh yeah, and if I was going to do this for reals, honestly, I would probably not work with as many colors. I would do these 2 turquoises together, and maybe bring in the gold as the 8-0. I don't know. I think I would play with it, but because this is going to be really
Danielle, I think you're going to probably play with it this weekend.
Oh yeah, yeah.
We're all nodding, knowing you as we have started to know you over this time period. But yeah, I just wanted to let you know, Sharon did say she just really loves the textured look.
Oh, thanks, Sharon. Yeah, I love it too. And it's definitely growing on me, even with these bright colors and all the stuff you got going on here. So I do want to say that this bubble stitch thingy works a lot easier in a single count. And here's why. This one's going to be really tricky to make work. To play with the tension a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Okay. And in that first row, try to select for thinner beads. This is going to be trickier. Maybe I should have jumped from 8-0 to 6-0. But the way to make it work is to start the curve. And the curving gives you space, whereas the width of 3-6-0 is never going to be the same width as 3-10-0, but it gives you more, like for example, when you curve it, you have more traveling room, I guess. If that makes any sense. Oops, I lost my needle. The tension is so tight that I'm losing the needle every time I pull.
Danielle, Sharon just agreed for you that the move should be from the 8 to the 6.
Yeah, and I mean, this has worked for me before, but it was in single count.
That it looks like a flower.
Yeah, this is getting into like kind of what I've heard a lot of folks really love freeform, which I've never done freeform. I just can't really, I have to have a pattern, right? But this is a lot like that, I think. And all I'm doing here is like, this is the point where I might not be sure it's going to work and I might pull my work out. But I've learned to force myself to keep going, even if I think it's not working very well, which right now I feel like it's not working. Because that's how you discover weird stuff, right? Like, how'd you think of that? Well, I was trying to do this other thing and it didn't work. And then, so yeah, this is getting a little funky, but definitely looked cool with going to the 8-0. But this isn't really working as well as I'd hoped. Oh yeah, let me do a turn, make sure that tightens. But in general, that's bubble stitch. And you know what? I'm curious if there's any chance that I have it next to me. It might be worth a quick look. Let's see what I got here. In here. I have a lot of stuff in this box. I don't see it. Darn. It's an old one, so yeah. But I will post it. I will post a picture of it. I've made so much jewelry over the years. I don't even know where most of it is. But this one I would have kept because it was a special one.
Danielle, because you're freestyling, even Tracy's wondering if you had, instead of adding 3, maybe you added 2.
You know what? That's not a bad idea.
We're just making you do everything we're going to do later when we experiment.
No, it's good. It's a good thing for me to try it. And if we come up with something that works, I will make a class out of it. Right? Because that would be really cool. Yeah, let's try it. Let's see what happens with just 2. Another thing that I could do is taper up. So we could start with 2 and then taper up further. Okay, so there's the 2. Yeah, that might work better. That might work a lot better, actually. I'm thinking that that is going to work. Hey, what a great idea. Oh yeah, okay.
So Danielle, you just dropped the 3 to a 2.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just working. It's not even needing like a lot of reinforcing either, which is kind of cool. My edges are getting a little bit wobbly, but if I force it to go into this shape, it might work. And of course, I wish we could bring our, we did a live a workshop class, a premium class called, it was Ripple Wave Peyote. But we can't share it because it was one of those premiums, so we can't just like link to it. But some of you guys might already have a link. It's working. Yeah, okay. So with the 6-0, I'm thinking maybe you'd want to do maybe 3 rows like that.
Ooh.
And then you could taper back down to your 10s, or like build it from the 8, then go back down to 8, then go back down to 10. That might work. That looks cool even like that. I could just switch to the 10s directly from here. Tighten that up. And I'm going to go back to 3 with my yellow. That's pretty cool. So yeah, you can see where that's just going to tighten it right back up. How neat is that? The backside of Ripple or Bubble looks so cool. I of course should have kept going, maybe for maybe 5 more rows or so, and sorry, a total of between 5 and 8 typically. And you really get a dramatic pop like that when you work with the small bead to the large bead. And when you do this in single count, so not in the 1, 2, and 3 drop, the effect is more dramatic looking, but even that, like that worked out pretty good. So if I put on another row, you'll really see it. Let me reinforce this side. My thread is running out, so I'm sad. I want to keep going. Oops. But yeah, so basically I would just need to add thread at this point. I've let it go way too short. But you just keep going like this and you get this cool.
Danielle, thank you. We ran you through with all our extras.
Yeah, no, no worries. I love
Thank you so much. I wanted to give you a few seconds to be able to look up and see everybody.
Oh yeah, here, let me switch my camera.
And earlier today on our social media platforms, I posted the next class. I know you have the samples there.
Oh, I do. Yeah. So what are we doing next week? Is it November next week?
November 4th.
Oh, that happened. Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. So the next one is, I'm going to pull that up. The basket weave. This is ladder stitch basically. And so we took the ladder stitches and put a piece of suede through it to make it look like a basket. It's pretty beginner friendly. You'll have a much easier time if you've already taken our intro to ladder stitch, which is a class that I believe I linked in the PDF, so you can easily get that. And then after that, we're doing some really pretty earrings. So stitching on the howlite there. That's a howlite disc. That's a little turquoise one. It's got a little crystal. This is brick stitch, but it's on a different medium, so it's kind of fun to change it up like that. And then our premium workshop for November. This will be right before Thanksgiving, I think, for the US, is this glacial netted bracelet. So it's got all kinds of like, just like colors. I used the blue palette that I pulled the blue 10-0 out of. Let's see, this one. Turn it upside down. I use a lot of those beads. But yeah, that's the palette I use there. And of course, it's all in the handout. And this is the other premium class. It's got little 4mm bicones. And this isn't a stitch I invented, but it's one I struggled with. So I thought it'd be a great workshop because it's something that I kind of figured out where my brain was disconnecting for figuring how to do this. And I can share that with everybody. And oh, thanks, Marguerite. Yes, thank you too for coming. And then if you skip forward to December, because we'll have a week off there for the holiday here in the US, but then we're going to start doing the Christmas stuff. So holiday bangles. This is a really easy round peyote. And I was inspired to do this by one of the Michael's classes that came out. There's one that's on there like, what's it called? You know, the static projects that are on the website. This one I thought would benefit from a live class because it came out in an e-blast at the same time as we launched the 3-packs. And a bunch of people messaged me and said, hey, where's the PDF for that? And I'm like, well, I didn't do that one, but I could do it. So we did a class. So now you get to see it too. And then there's my personal favorite, coffee cream and crystal, which is like a flat chenille fringe with just beautiful bicones. So that's our December. And then our December workshop, I'm still working on it. Almost have it done. I think I'll have it ready to show you guys next week in our next class. I'll have it ready. Maybe posted sooner. But that's all. Yeah, that's everything. I don't know if there's anything else to. Are we having anything else going on that I'm forgetting?
No, you covered everything, Danielle. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and as always, if you want to make and tag us, we're at hashtag Make It With Michaels and also hashtag John Bead. If you're in our Facebook group and you post, we love seeing all of your beautiful work there too. So reach out if you need anything. And again, my email is danielle.wicks@johnbead.com. And so you can email me or you can find me on Insta. Usually that's pretty easy, pops up on my phone, so I should see it. All right, thanks. Hi, Jesse. Oh, I'm gonna switch to gallery, just a quick view, you guys, because I never get to see everybody. Oh, wow. Hey, guys. Well, have a great weekend. And oh, wow, that's great. Cindy has hers really almost done. That's so cool. It's great to see you guys. Happy Friday and lots of love to you.